I'm really honored to be here this morning for this particular session. I think this is a great forum, global networking forum, right? We all agree that space is a team sport, and team means across countries, across nations. And so I'm going to be really excited to talk to you this morning about some things that we're doing that encompass not only Blue Origin, but countries and stakeholders from across the globe. So we're really excited about that. All right. So let me talk briefly about Blue Origin in general. So Blue, of course, we do space transportation. We have rockets. We have a lunar program. We do landers. I'm going to give you some updates and some status about those. But we do a lot of things. In this particular talk, I'm going to want to talk about space resources and how do we utilize resources in space so that we aren't just continuously launching stuff off the surface of the planet, right? Because that kind of defeats the purpose. So we're going to talk about that. This particular graphic I really like. It kind of shows, hey, how do we look at what's available on the moon in terms of resources? How do we potentially not only use them on the moon, but bring them back to Earth, and then further extend that technology into near-Earth objects, whether it's asteroids or other things? How do we then further extend that technology? So that's really what this graphic is all about. All right, by the numbers, Blue Origin Fast Facts. So we were founded in the year 2000. So we literally just celebrated our 25th anniversary as a company. Of course, we were founded by Jeff Bezos. Jeff has had a passion for space since he was very young, even before high school. And he talks about that in various interviews and how he has wanted to do amazing things in space for most of his life. We now have well over 10,000 employees, I will tell you that. We have taken about 75 folks to orbit, and we have another New Shepard launch coming up here very shortly, where we will take another 6 astronauts, I believe, up beyond the Kármán line. We have a passion for engaging the future generations. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And so we've had 95 million engagements with future generations, right? Whether it's social media or opportunities for people to fly postcards in space or other STEM engagements. So we're really proud of the work that almost every employee at Blue is involved in that. And we are a business. We are not a hobby. Our CEO, Dave Limp, talks about that all the time. When he took that job from Jeff, he said, hey, Jeff, is this a business or a hobby? And Jeff said, oh, no, this is a business. And so we have roughly 10 billion in orders. And so we are working towards expanding that sales backlog even further. So now with the advent of our New Glenn rocket. So we talk about building the road to space for the benefit of Earth. And so really, in its heart of hearts, and Jeff talks about this also, Blue Origin is an infrastructure company. And so we want to build the things that allow people, humanity to work and operate in space, to foster business in space and economies in space. And so that really is what Blue is founded to do. We have a vision where millions of people can live and work in space. That obviously probably is not going to happen in our generation or maybe even the next, but it will happen at some point. And so we are building the infrastructure to support that. So the first job one is to radically reduce the cost of access to space. That enables everything else. And whenever we talk about priorities at Blue Origin, that always rises to the top. So how do we make sure that we are launching a lot, and we are able to reduce the cost across the board of access to space? And so our primary mechanism for that is our New Glenn heavy launch vehicle. And you see some specifications around that rocket on this chart. But I want to really talk, kind of give you an update of where we are on New Glenn. We did have, of course, our first launch of this rocket early this year, and it was a very successful launch. It made it to orbit. It inserted our Blue Ring, actually Pathfinder payload, within a fraction of a percent of its orbital parameters. orbiters, so highly successful orbital insertion performance. The only thing we didn't quite stick the landing on the first stage. And we knew that was going to be a risk on the very first launch of a heavy rocket, right, heavy launch rocket. So, so we knew that that was a possibility. We've been working on that, and we are really, really close to launching number 2, New Glenn. So we are going to, with this rocket, we are going to go to Mars. So we are taking the Escapade payload, which is 2 satellites that are going to be going to Martian orbit. So that rocket now we've tested our second stage. We're getting ready to hot fire our first stage here probably within a few weeks. And then the launch will occur probably within a few weeks after that. So we are well on the way to launching our second New Glenn rocket, and we have much more confidence that we're going to stick the landing this time, and we're going to be able to land that first stage on our barge out at sea and reuse it. So that's going to be super exciting, and then we actually are planning even a third launch of New Glenn potentially before the end of this year. That launch will cover one of our Blue Moon landers. So when we talk about the road to space, we're talking about roads to orbit, right? LEO, GEO, GTO, MEO, right? All the orbits. But we're also talking about the road to the moon. And so, as many of you know, we do have a contract with NASA under HLS with the Artemis program. And we are building a series, not a singular lander, but multiple types and sizes and scales of landers to go to the moon. So this is a picture of our Mark 1 lander, the first of which is almost fully integrated, is going to Johnson for some additional testing, and then we'll be in line to be on the next New Glenn launch, which we hopefully will have before the end of this year. So Mark 1 will take that. This is Blue Origin's internally funded lander. So this is a lander we chose to develop to pathfind the technologies that we were going to need for the Artemis program. So Mark 1 can take about 3 metric tons to the surface of the moon. We have the second unit is already in production, and we just announced, I guess a week or so ago, that we were going to be flying the Viper rover. And I cannot tell you how excited we are to be flying Viper to the moon. That program has had its challenges, and we were able to find a way with NASA to be able to launch and land that rover. So Viper is intended to launch in late 2027. So that will be the next Mark 1 lander. And then, of course, we are also developing our Mark 2 landers to support the Artemis missions for NASA. So we have both a cargo version of the Mark 2 and we have a crew version of the Mark 2 lander. So there is a whole series, a family of landers that allow entities to access the surface of the moon with varying capabilities. And Mark II in particular has a tremendous cargo capability with many, many tons of, up to 20 metric tons in a reusable configuration and 30 metric tons to the surface of the moon in an expendable configuration. So it is a pretty spectacular capability, and you start to see how we can take advantage and actually build things on the moon, leave things on the moon that constitute infrastructure that allow other missions and economies to start to grow. So the second thing we want to do, I talked about reducing the cost of access to space. The second thing we want to do is we want to inspire and mobilize future generations. I talked about how, this idea of millions and vision, right, of millions of people living and working in space is not going to happen, potentially for some time. So how do you mobilize next generations? And so we have a thing called Club for the Future, which is Blue's mechanism to engage and do various projects and special things with communities of young people all over the country and in some cases all over the world to engage them and really inspire them to continue this mission even beyond, when we all are happily retired. So that is part of what we do at Blue Origin as well. And then the final thing is space resources. So it's very clear that in order to enable these kinds of economies, in order to sustain human exploration, We can't just keep launching off the surface of the planet with stuff, whether it's oxygen or water or food or fuel or whatever it might be, right? We have to generate those things. We have to extract those things from things that are in space. So we have a whole community within Blue Origin, our Space Resources Center of Excellence that we have created and invested in over many years, headquartered in LA, North Hollywood, glamour spot of the country. And so it is a very special place. We have about 60-ish folks that are working in that area. Huge growth, and we've got a whole series of test beds where we're actually demonstrating the technology of being able to extract resources. So the idea of alchemy, and I'll talk about Blue Alchemist here in a second, is to take something that seems to have no value, like the dust and the rocks and the stuff that's on the surface of the moon or maybe an asteroid or something like that, and actually extract and make amazing things, extraordinary resources out of those things. All right, so Blue Alchemist. So, gosh, 2.5 years ago, Vlada, we were awarded a NASA tipping point contract called Blue Alchemist. And NASA invested about $35 million into that contract. And we at Blue have invested, I will just say, more than that into this capability to be able to utilize resources. Specifically in this case, we're focused on lunar regolith. But ultimately, again, this technology is extensible. So it is an end-to-end, scalable commercial solution that produces solar cells specifically from lunar regolith, right? It's from the elements that are found in lunar regolith. Happily, that process also produces oxygen, which obviously is very valuable for a variety of reasons. So we are able to make autonomously, and the idea, this is a conceptual of kind of what might a thing look like that sits on the surface of the moon and ingests lunar regolith and spits out solar panels. So that's the kind of thing that we are working on. We use a process called molten regolith electrolysis, MRE. It uses no chemicals, no carbon, no water. So it is a very, very green process. And that's important because that's interesting for a variety of reasons and for a variety of other customers. Obviously, this is an enabler, right, for the future of human sustainability on the moon, but also in other places. The modular aspects of this particular process, we've been able to kind of set up different cells or stations of how this process works, and we can extract aluminum, we can extract silicon, iron, oxygen in this process. So we can actually tailor how we want to apply this process based on the resource that is desired from lunar regolith. So it's a very, very exciting technology, and we're very excited to have proven it. We have some very specific technical goals that we've been able to achieve over the course of that process, and it is scalable. So we envision being able to launch this kind of a capability, instantiate it on the moon, and be able to generate solar power extensively on the surface. So it is a scalable process. We just passed a very successful critical design review. We put out some press, I think, on that probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. NASA was there. We had our own internal review committee. And so the CDR for that was very, very good. But I will tell you that it was a very hardware-rich CDR. And so we have been able to fully demonstrate this process. The next milestone on this particular contract is to demonstrate the process in a relevant lunar environment. So vacuum, temperature, all of those things. So that will be happening next year where we'll demonstrate the process in a relevant lunar environment. So very exciting. And we are looking, of course, at what the follow-on is to Blue Alchemist, working with NASA, working with other customers who have an interest in this technology. And so the next step, when you think about, okay, now we're demonstrating the how. We're demonstrating the how of how we would extract resources from space. Now we need to figure out where exactly, right? We talk a lot about the South Pole, and we talk a lot about different areas where we're pretty sure, we have some data that there are resources in those kinds of regions. But just yesterday, we released a public statement and very excited to announce OASIS 1. OASIS is a lunar prospecting mission. And it is the first in likely a series of missions where we intend to improve our knowledge, improve our resource maps of what exists on the surface of the moon. Obviously, there has been work done here, and we do have some information about what exists on the surface of the moon and where it might be. But the idea behind OASIS, it is 2 small satellites that are going to fly roughly a 90-day mission. They're going to be deployed from one of our Mark 1 landers that I showed you on a previous chart. They're going to be deployed from that lander as it descends towards the surface of the moon. And those are going to be our mappers. They're going to fly a series of instruments. We will have neutron spectroscopy. We will have gamma spectroscopy. We will have some magnetometers. So we are going to be able to find water, so ice, rare earth minerals. We are going to be able to find helium-3, which has been somewhat in the news lately as something that has a high value to supercomputing, medical applications, all sorts of things that are super valuable here on Earth. And so we're actually working with a company called Interloon. Interloon has a business plan and an intention to extract helium-3 from the surface of the moon and be able to return it to Earth. So we are working with a number of entities who are very, very interested in having better maps of where resources exist on the moon. The moon has been collecting stuff for billions of years, right? Asteroids have been hitting it, stuff has been hitting it, it's been collecting, for billions of years. And we know kind of sort of where stuff is, but when you talk about the cost and the complexity of landing things on the moon and then having a certain radius of operations, right, that might be measured in kilometers, maybe if you're lucky, you need to know more precisely where these reserves of these resources actually are. So by launching this particular program, we are going to be able to say and to be able to tell and to be able to produce maps of exactly where these resources actually exist at a much higher fidelity than has ever been available before. And we intend to make this data available so that businesses, governments are able to then say, I'm interested in X. I think I know where I want to go land, and have a much higher probability of success of being able to target those landing sites and being successful in extracting and being able to access those various kinds of resources. So this is a very, very exciting program. We are super, super excited about our partnership with Luxembourg on this program. This is an example of a global initiative, multiple partners. Luxembourg, of course, has a long history of excellence in space resources. And so in doing that kind of research and development, not only from a technical standpoint, but from a business standpoint. How do you create economies out of what we can find on the surface of the moon or elsewhere in our solar system? So we're very excited to be partnered with Luxembourg Space Agency. We are going to be working with GomSpace to put together these 2 small sats, the buses, and then ESRIC, European Space Resources Innovation Center. Got it. I'm really proud of myself. So that entity is going to be helping us with data analysis. And so we are super excited also to be working with ESRIC. So that is sort of the team, the partnership that is behind OASIS. And I really encourage you all, if you're not already, to follow Blue Origin on social media. We're going to be announcing things about New Glenn. We're going to be announcing things about our Mark 1 and our Mark 2 lander progress, as well as progress on both Blue Alchemist and OASIS. And again, we kind of think of this as the first of several missions. In this case, what's kind of cool about this is we're going to play with altitude. You say, how are we going to get these kinds of resolutions, right? Orders of magnitude better. We're going to play with altitude. So this vehicle may fly as low as just a couple of kilometers above the surface of the moon in areas where we really, really want to find, get some really great resolution in different areas. So this is going to be a pretty cool ability to kind of auger in and really see some specific areas as we fly this particular mission. So these vehicles will have a lot of capability. So very, very excited about that. We are open to future partnerships always with this kind of technology. If you or an entity that you're associated with has an interest in this mission as well as future missions and how that they might be expanded, either from an instrument standpoint or an economic standpoint, we would love to talk to you. I have a number of members of our team here in the audience, and so they would be super excited to talk to you after this. So let me then talk about what's next. So I've talked about how this technology is very green, right? So very low carbon, no water, low to no carbon, no water, no chemicals, right? So from an environmental standpoint, it is an extremely interesting technology. And frankly, the composition of lunar regolith and the rocks that are on the surface of the moon is maybe not that much different from some of the stuff that exists on the surface of the Earth. And so you can take this technology and maybe you are able to say, hey, let's take the sand that exists on the surface and transform that into solar. Obviously, we extract silicon from sand. We've done a lot of those kinds of things for many, many years. But to be able to do that in a very green, clean way is the innovative part of that, and to be able to do it in an autonomous way as well. So we are looking at terrestrial applications of this technology. It also has applicability to extract rare earth minerals, rare earth elements from sort of unconventional feedstock, right? So we think this process has the ability to potentially enhance the return, right, out of certain kinds of feedstock. We're able to pull more, have less waste in our mining processes here on Earth. And also, of course, there's been a lot about rare earth elements and minerals, critical minerals in the news. And this technology, I think, has the ability to help us be more efficient, more effective in extracting those minerals on the surface of the Earth. So we are developmental in this area. And again, if you have an interest, we are very much interested in expanding this technology and working with different partners who may want to work with us on this and potentially look at terrestrial applications. So with that is the bulk of my presentation. I went through things fairly quickly. I did want to leave a little bit of time for questions, and so I have a handy dandy question thing here. So I may call on my friends here in the audience. I may phone a friend if I need to. But let me go ahead and talk to some of these questions. What are the terrestrial application of helium-3? So the ones that I am aware of have to do specifically with quantum computing. It is an element that is utilized to enhance our ability to do quantum computing, which obviously has applications across a variety of industries. I believe it also has medical applications. I don't know, Vlada, do you have any other? You said it pretty well. Yeah. Those are the two that I am predominantly aware of. Rob Meyerson, who is, I'll put in a little plug for Interloon. Rob Meyerson and Gary Lai, if you go to their website, they will chat your ear off about the applications of helium-3 here on the planet. But I believe it is so rare on Earth, and it is so valuable that they are anticipating tens of millions. It has a value of like tens of millions per kilo here on Earth. So that is the business case. It's an example of a business case of taking something that's extremely rare on Earth, but very interesting, finding it on the moon where it's much more plentiful, and returning it to Earth. And that in that particular case has a business case because it is so valuable. But the more we can reduce the cost of getting there, knowing where to go, being able to extract that particular resource and bringing it home, the better the business case, right? And it's an example of businesses that we haven't even, who thought, right? Who'd have thought that there would be helium-3 on the moon and we could bring it back and we could enable all these cool things. So it's a great example of a business. Let's see. Can you discuss the timelines for OASIS and when this might launch, as well as for the first lunar demonstrations of blue alchemy? That's a great question. So I talked about our Mark 1 landers and how we intend for that to almost be like a production line, right? So our Mark 1s can take about 3 metric tons to the surface of the moon, more or less. I think we're going to get a little better as we go and we learn. First mission, roughly the end of this year. That's really our Pathfinder. Second mission is taking the Viper rover. That is late 2027. And we anticipate more opportunities to use that Mark I lander technology in the future. So generally speaking, I would say we're targeting OASIS launch in that time frame, right? Late 2027, 2028. So we hope to have this mission launched in that time frame and have the data available pretty shortly thereafter. So call it 2028 time frame for this mapping data to be available. And then in terms of demonstration of Blue Alchemist on the surface of the moon, that is something we are working really hard with NASA to try to, as well as other potential customers, to be able to put together a true flight article and be able to demonstrate it on the surface of the moon. So stand by on that. More to come. We really, really, really want to do that. We want to do it as quickly as we can. Okay. The production of solar panels require a lot of silica, which is abundant both here on Earth and on the moon. What is used in the moon reality as the main electrical conductor? I'm going to let you take that one, Vlada.
That's just aluminum.
Aluminum. Okay. So, and that is something that we have successfully extracted from the components of lunar regoliths. So that one is already there. Is there strong evidence fabricating in situ is more economical than prefab and ship? So this is really the equation that I was talking about, right? So if we produce in situ, the thing that we have to launch is the manufacturing capability, right? Whether it's a thing like Blue Alchemist that creates solar, or it's a thing relevant, related to Blue Alchemist that creates oxygen. And once you have that up and running and powered, right, that thing can produce, we're designing for lifetimes of on the order of 10 to 15 years. And so that means you don't have to keep launching these expensive resources, into space. So the equation works out pretty quickly. If you're spending, some tens or hundreds of millions of dollars at the most, frankly, on this kind of manufacturing capability, maybe less, the better we get, the smarter we get, it becomes much more economical to be able to have it on the moon and producing for multiple years, maybe even multiple decades, than it is to just continue to keep launching things. So the math works out pretty quickly. Does the mining process generate solid waste that would need to be managed? There is leftover, right, after this process is completed. And we actually are looking at using that remaining material for building purposes, right? Whether you want to build structures, whether you want to use it for roads or landing pads or things of that nature, there actually is plenty of goodness to be had from what is left over after this process is completed. So we would be looking to use the remaining products out of this process for other purposes on the surface of the moon. So let's see. When are you hoping to ideally and realistically first reuse a recovered New Glenn first stage? Then the next launch, so the third launch, right? So we fully intend to recover the New Glenn first stage on this next launch. Fully intend to do it. I don't know if you may have known this before, but the name of our first New Glenn first stage was So You're Telling Me There's a Chance? And the name of our second New Glenn first stage is Never Tell Me the Odds. So if you're a movie fan, you know where those come from. But we really fully intend to recover and land on our landing barge the next New Glenn launched first stage. And we will use that first stage on the next New Glenn launch. That is the intent. And so we're pretty confident this time. We knew it was going to be a long shot on the first launch. We feel pretty good about it now on this next launch. Let's see. You claimed the molten regolith electrolysis could extract silicon metal and rare earth metals from regolith. Have you published any of your results on this? From my understanding, it is only capable to produce iron. And the short answer is no. We have published results. Sorry, the short answer is yes. We have published results. We have published results that show that we can extract all the things that I listed off around aluminum, silicon, oxygen. We have proof, and we have published on that. If you are interested in more details, I encourage you, Vlada, raise your hand. I encourage you to come talk to Vlada and the rest of our team. We'd be happy to fill you in. And we have specific technical goals that we've focused on, like the purity of the oxygen that we are extracting, the purity of the silicon that we are extracting, because that goes directly to the efficiency of the cells that you can create out of this process. Obviously, the higher the efficiency of the cell, the less of them you have to produce over time, and the more power you can create out of this process. So we have some very specific goals around the purity and the quality of the things that we are extracting as part of this process that the team's been able to achieve. Okay, I think I am out of time. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.